Breaking Oprah on the run. Kash issues. Warrant. Diddy's leaked clip exposes her dark secret. A bombshell dropped just an hour ago. Oprah Winfrey, the media mogul once revered for her philanthropy and influence, is now a fugitive. The iconic talk show host, whose name was synonymous with hope and inspiration, is now linked to a dark and disturbing scandal. An arrest warrant has been issued, and sources confirm that Oprah has fled the United States, reportedly heading to Zurich, Switzerland, after shocking footage tied to the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs surfaced. The leaked footage, a ticking time bomb, implicates Oprah in a broader conspiracy. The footage, long held by Diddy, has been kept under wraps, buried in the dark corners of Hollywood's most guarded secrets. It allegedly reveals Oprah's involvement in a vast cover-up, one that includes minors in compromising situations and illicit activities involving powerful elites. A $75 million payoff is said to have been made by Oprah to suppress the footage and prevent its release. This bombshell revelation has sent shockwaves through the public. The FBI is now involved, tracing digital trails that may unravel one of the darkest webs in Hollywood's history. It all started with Diddy's arrest in a joint operation by the FBI and Homeland Security. Trafficking and financial crimes were at the heart of the investigation. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, Oprah's name emerged as a key player embroiled in a conspiracy to protect her public image at all costs. The fallout from Diddy's arrest led to a slew of revelations about powerful individuals, including Oprah, who had allegedly used her media empire to silence victims and hide the truth. A former staffer has come forward, claiming that Oprah paid millions to cover up footage that exposed the involvement of high-profile figures in illegal activities. This scandal has stirred the public's anger, especially with social media platforms like TikTok and Reddit amplifying the allegations. The public's reaction has been swift and unforgiving, while Oprah's supporters point to her decades of philanthropy and the success of her Academy. Critics are demanding accountability. She's not fleeing for a break, one viral post reads. She's fleeing justice. The FBI is tracking Oprah's movements closely, and with each passing day, more evidence piles up against her. In the wake of this scandal, a new voice has emerged to challenge Oprah's legacy. Jaguar Wright, a former artist and whistleblower, Wright has become a central figure in the fight to expose the truth. Her live streams, once seen as erratic, have now become a focal point for analysts and journalists trying to piece together the narrative behind Oprah's actions. Her deleted interviews with Piers Morgan, which once aired, have now been resurrected, adding fuel to the fire. The investigation has uncovered troubling details, including communication logs between Oprah and Diddy's circle, with names like Stevie J appearing in relation to private events involving illicit activities. These logs, seized by federal agents, are crucial in connecting Oprah to the broader criminal network that has been operating under the radar for years. The public is left asking one simple question: why would Oprah flee the country? What is worth $75 million to hide? What secrets does she have to protect? Oprah, once seen as a beacon of hope, is now at the center of a scandal that could bring down some of the most powerful people in Hollywood. The question isn't just about Oprah anymore. It's about the network of influence that has been hiding the truth for decades. As authorities close in, the question looms larger: how deep does the conspiracy go? The investigation is ongoing, and with each new revelation, the web of deceit grows ever more intricate. The next few weeks will determine whether Oprah's legacy will be defined by her betrayal of public trust, or whether she can somehow reclaim her former stature. Oprah Winfrey's sudden departure from the United States has rocked the nation. The iconic talk show host, who built her empire on messages of hope, self-empowerment, and philanthropy, has now been thrust into a darker narrative. After the FBI issued an arrest warrant for Oprah, following the exposure of her alleged role in a cover-up, she reportedly fled the U.S. on a private jet. Flight records confirm that Oprah's jet, linked to Harpo Inc., took off from Los Angeles, bound for Zurich, Switzerland, a country known for its complex extradition laws. As news of Oprah's flight spread, so did the anger and disbelief. Oprah, a woman revered by millions, was now fleeing a scandal that may be far bigger than anyone initially thought. The public's reaction has been divided, with some defending her legacy while others call for justice. What is beyond doubt, however, is that the situation surrounding Oprah is far from simple. The FBI's investigation has unearthed disturbing details that suggest Oprah's involvement in a conspiracy that spans years. The case began with the arrest of Sean "Diddy" Combs. A joint FBI and Homeland Security operation led to the arrest of the music mogul, who was charged with trafficking and financial crimes. Investigators uncovered digital media that linked several major Hollywood figures to illegal activities. Among the names implicated was Oprah. The FBI's probe into the matter led them to a shocking revelation. Oprah reportedly paid $75 million to suppress footage that allegedly depicted minors in compromising situations, as well as the involvement of powerful elites in illegal acts. This is where things take a darker turn. The footage, which was long thought to be a rumor, had been stored and hidden by Diddy, but it wasn't until now that its existence was confirmed. Whistleblower Jaguar Wright played a significant role in amplifying the allegations. Wright, who had previously been a guest on Oprah's show, claimed that Oprah used her legal team to pressure her into deleting interviews. These interviews were aired by Piers Morgan, but vanished after Oprah's legal pressure. As a result, Wright's claims gained massive traction on social media platforms like TikTok and Reddit, where users began revisiting Oprah's past controversies, including the 2007 South African school scandal. The FBI's investigation is now reaching a boiling point. Digital evidence, including communications between Oprah and Diddy's team, has been seized. The logs show discussions surrounding private events that allegedly involved illicit activity. Diddy's mansion was raided and partial footage from hard drives was recovered, escalating the investigation into something much larger than initially anticipated. The evidence points to a calculated operation that involved not only Diddy but Oprah herself. Meanwhile, as the investigation deepened, the public's perception of Oprah began to shift. Once a revered figure, Oprah's empire was now being scrutinized for its darker underbelly. Reports have surfaced suggesting that she used her media empire, Harpo Inc., to suppress the truth and protect her public image at all costs. But the question remains, why would Oprah go to such extreme lengths to hide this footage? And what was it worth? The leaked footage is believed to involve high-profile individuals, including celebrities, politicians, and other public figures, all caught in compromising situations. It is rumored that the footage was purchased from Diddy for a staggering $75 million. And the question everyone is asking is, what was Oprah trying to protect? Why did she think paying this amount was the only way to avoid exposure? In the wake of Oprah's flight, several of her former allies are now speaking out. A former Oprah staffer who has remained anonymous for safety reasons revealed that Oprah had a network of people working for her, facilitating deliveries of media between Los Angeles, Chicago, and Zurich. The former staffer's testimony has provided critical insights into the scale of the operation. According to the whistleblower, Oprah was not just trying to protect herself, but was actively involved in orchestrating the suppression of critical information. One former Harpo executive assistant also came forward under protection, saying that she had been instructed to organize and facilitate media operations for Oprah. The assistant, whose identity is being kept confidential, claims that Oprah's media team played a central role in controlling the narrative and preventing any damaging information from reaching the public. These testimonies, coupled with the digital evidence and financial transfers now under investigation, have painted a picture of a well-organized and calculated cover-up. The FBI's involvement has intensified, and agents are now tracing financial trails that link Oprah to a series of suspicious transactions. These include a $12.7 million transfer, which occurred just days after a private event in the Bahamas known as Event 47. The event, which was reportedly connected to the footage that Oprah sought to suppress, has become central to the investigation. The payment was routed through Oprah's intermediary to Diddy's camp, and the connection to the footage is clear. The money trail is now under close scrutiny by the DOJ, Homeland Security, and other agencies, and the investigation has expanded to include multiple other high-profile individuals linked to the scandal. But it's not just the financial aspect of the case that has drawn attention. The very nature of the footage and what it allegedly contains has sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Investigators believe that the footage shows powerful figures engaging in illicit activities involving minors and drugs. This revelation has been met with widespread outrage as the public begins to demand accountability for those involved. Celebrities, media moguls, and political figures, once untouchable, are now facing public scrutiny like never before. As the investigation continues, the stakes grow higher. Oprah's legal team, in an attempt to delay the inevitable, has begun exploring all possible tactics to stall the extradition process. The legal strategy is centered around portraying Oprah as a victim of political persecution, claiming that the charges against her are motivated by her race and gender. This defense has been met with mixed reactions, with some legal experts suggesting that it could delay the process but ultimately won't prevent Oprah from facing the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, the investigation into Diddy's activities has revealed more disturbing details, and the question everyone is asking remains, how far does this go? The FBI is now examining encrypted communications, financial transfers, and metadata that paint a clear picture of a coordinated effort to suppress evidence. What was once a celebrity scandal has now become a high-stakes investigation with global implications. The fallout from Oprah's flight continues to unfold, and with each passing day, more pieces of the puzzle are revealed. The world is watching as the case takes on a life of its own, threatening to expose a network of influence and secrecy that has been operating under the radar for years. One thing is certain: the Oprah Winfrey scandal is far from over, and its impact will be felt for years to come. As the investigation deepened, federal agents turned their focus toward a chilling code name whispered in the corridors of Harpo Inc. Project Silk. Originally believed to be a risk mitigation program for media leaks, Project Silk was far more sinister. According to a former Harpo IT contractor, it was a vault, a secure digital repository containing terabytes of highly sensitive content. The folders were labeled with code names, some eerily similar to celebrities, politicians, and corporate leaders. Encrypted and air-gapped from public servers, the vault was stored both in a Swiss node and in mirrored drives, believed to be located in the Bahamas. Investigators recovered a 2016 internal Harpo board audio recording, in which a voice resembling Oprah's said, "If these go public, it's not just careers, it's countries." That single line, leaked by journalist Thea Ramirez and confirmed by audio forensics, sent shockwaves through the FBI and DOJ. It strongly suggested not only awareness, but strategic intent to conceal explosive material. Digital forensic teams reconstructed the vault's wipe logs. Unlike simple deletions which leave recoverable fragments, Harpo's IT specialists employed military-grade overwriting protocols, suggesting deliberate, irreversible data destruction. But they missed one drive seized during the raid on a private Zurich data center. That backup contained partial but damning video frames, file logs, and metadata. Among the file names were project timestamps corresponding to Event 47, a now infamous luxury retreat in the Bahamas. Records show $120. $7 million transfer from Harpo's financial proxy Silos Consulting to an offshore account tied to Diddy's management firm. The timing: 2 days after Event 47, the memo line, "Simply black gold." Federal agents believe this transaction was Oprah's purchase of the master footage. Then came the confirmation. Encrypted footage included imagery of individuals believed to be underage, filmed without consent, engaged in exploitative acts involving narcotics and elite individuals. Though the DOJ has kept the content sealed, sources say a secure Senate subcommittee was shown partial footage under emergency session. The reaction to senators left visibly shaken. One issued a short statement, "Justice must follow, no matter who paid what." Meanwhile, back in Switzerland, Oprah's fortified St. Moritz estate was under 24-hour surveillance. Her legal team filed for asylum arguing racial and gender-based political persecution. However, the mounting evidence made it increasingly unlikely that Swiss authorities would grant permanent protection. The extradition requests supported by the FBI and Department of Justice cited obstruction of justice, conspiracy, destruction of evidence, and witness tampering. The trafficking-related charges remained pending, contingent on international witness testimonies. In the court of public opinion, the narrative shifted further. Reddit exploded with threads dissecting Oprah's past. Her 2007 South African school abuse scandal, once seen as an isolated incident, was now being reconsidered as part of a pattern of selective silence. A clip resurfaced where Oprah refused to comment on a prominent guest's arrest, saying, "We protect our own." Now that phrase seemed like a confession rather than a platitude. Another crucial witness stepped forward, Angela, a former Harpo philanthropic logistics coordinator. Her original role was managing VIP travel and media shipments. But under immunity, she confessed to facilitating coded travel arrangements for individuals attending elite events, during which some of the recordings were allegedly made. She said in a 60 Minutes interview, "I thought I was protecting a humanitarian mission, but I was just arranging flights for shadows." Her travel logs and expense records matched encrypted calendar entries on DIDDY'S server, cross-verified by Homeland Security. The names listed under aliases were decrypted using private jet manifests. 2 high-profile actors, 3 music executives, and a tech billionaire's assistant appeared in these logs, though redacted from public release. At this point, Jaguar Wright's status changed. Once dismissed as erratic, she was now viewed as an early whistleblower. Her Piers Morgan segment removed due to legal threats became a viral download via torrents and Reddit archives. Analysts began deconstructing her claims. While scattered and emotional, they aligned shockingly well with details now emerging from federal investigations. Then came Monique's second public statement. The actress and comedian, long known for her feud with Oprah, said, "They called me difficult for asking questions. Now you know why no one was supposed to ask." The quote lit up social media. Even longtime Oprah defender Gayle King issued a statement. "I love my friend, but friendship is not immunity." She announced a professional suspension from Oprah, another crack in the once impenetrable empire. Meanwhile, Harpo Studios shut down operations. OWN ceased broadcasts. Oprah's foundation's boards and nonprofit branches began to dissolve or go dark. Prestigious universities that once honored her began quietly revoking honorary degrees. Corporate sponsors pulled out in rapid succession. Apple TV scrubbed her name from future project slates. Penguin Random House paused promotion of her book club titles. In Zurich, Oprah's team prepared for her eventual return. A pre-recorded video confession leaked through the Swiss press. In it, Oprah says tearfully, "I didn't suppress the footage to protect monsters. I did it to prevent chaos. I truly believed it would save lives. I see now, it only cost more." Some viewers called it heartfelt. Others called it manipulation. The FBI called it irrelevant. Homeland Security issued a warning any further attempt to delay extradition would be met with economic and diplomatic countermeasures. Behind closed doors, Swiss officials agreed to move forward. The extradition clock had started. As agents finalized the chain of custody, digital analysts cracked one last layer of encryption on the Zurich node. Inside a Harpo internal memo from 2019 titled Asset Rotation Protocol, Emergency Edition, the document outlined procedures for securely transferring vault materials via diplomatic couriers to non-extradition territories. It named Oprah as chair of strategic oversight. The memo ended with a chilling directive. All copies of Category 4A content must be incinerated upon arrival, no backups. If exposed, deny origin. if traced blame acquisition, maintain narrative integrity at all costs. That line became the smoking gun. The Department of Justice released a formal statement. This case is no longer about a media mogul. It is about a systemic operation to conceal criminal acts. The evidence is vast. The victims are real. The accountability must be absolute. A nation held its breath. The courtroom was tense as the Oprah Winfrey trial entered its final stages. Outside, the world watched. The once beloved icon, now the face of scandal and corruption, sat at the defense table, her once charming smile now replaced by a hardened expression. The prosecution had laid out an airtight case, and the air felt heavy with anticipation. The evidence was damning. From the $75 million payment Oprah made to suppress the footage to the encrypted communications that linked her to Diddy, it seemed like the walls were closing in. But Oprah's legal team wasn't giving up without a fight. They attempted to paint a picture of misjudgment, of someone who was trying to protect others, albeit through misguided actions. They argued she hadn't understood the scale of the damage her decisions would cause. Thomas Hallman, the lead prosecutor, stood tall in the courtroom, his voice steady and commanding. He opened with the facts. This case is not about a celebrity trying to shield a few people from public scrutiny. This is about systematic efforts to cover up crimes that involved not just powerful figures in Hollywood, but children. This was an operation premeditated, organized, and executed with the full intent to suppress the truth. The FBI and Homeland Security had laid out the digital forensics data logs, travel records, encrypted server communications, all leading to a chilling conclusion: Oprah had acted as the gatekeeper for a network of exploitation and trafficking. The fact that the footage of minors in compromising positions was hidden within her company's vault was enough to make even the most hardened legal professionals pause. But the defense was relentless. Oprah's legal team tried to humanize their client, painting her as the victim of circumstances beyond her control. They invoked Oprah's philanthropy, her school in South Africa, and her countless charitable endeavors. They argued that she was manipulated by others, suggesting that Diddy and other powerful figures had used her influence to shield them from the consequences of their actions. Yet the jury remained unmoved. The emotional testimonies from Angela, the whistleblower, who had worked within Oprah's operations, provided a stark contrast. She had described in agonizing detail how she helped facilitate the transfer of media and documents between Harpo and Diddy's camp, all while believing that she was involved in some form of philanthropy. But as Angela admitted, the philanthropy was a cover for something far darker. The most damning moment came when Jaguar Wright, the whistleblower, who had been speaking out against Oprah for years, took the stand. Her voice was sharp, unwavering. She didn't mince words. "I told you. I warned you." Oprah Winfrey was the one who protected the predators. She knew. She protected them all. She had everything at her fingertips and chose to look the other way. As Wright's words echoed in the courtroom, many of the jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The gravity of the situation was impossible to ignore. Oprah Winfrey, the woman who had once been synonymous with hope, with empowerment, now stood accused of shielding the very people who exploited that hope. Gayle King, Oprah's longtime friend, also spoke out, but not in her defense. The silence from Oprah's inner circle was deafening, but King's statement during a CBS interview cut to the core. "I love Oprah, I do, but sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to choose right over loyalty, and this isn't right." The courtroom watched as Oprah sat motionless. It was clear her empire had crumbled, and now she was left to face the consequences of her actions. The closing arguments were brief but powerful. Holman stood up one last time. "This case is about more than fame, more than power. It's about those who are left behind, the victims who were silenced, ignored, and discarded. It's about a culture that enabled abuse and then hid it behind the curtain of celebrity." The defense countered with an impassioned plea, but the damage was done. The facts had spoken for themselves. As the jury retired to deliberate, the media frenzy intensified. Oprah's legacy was being picked apart piece by piece. Some, like Monique, continued to speak out, reinforcing the idea that Oprah's fall was long overdue. Others, like Piers Morgan, began to demand accountability, revisiting past interviews and segments that had once been viewed as harmless. Now they looked like puzzle pieces of a much bigger picture. Inside the courtroom, the quiet was palpable. Outside, the world waited. As the verdict was delivered, it was clear Oprah had been found guilty on charges of obstruction, witness tampering, and conspiracy, but not for trafficking. The evidence against her was irrefutable, but there wasn't enough direct evidence to convict her on trafficking charges. The sentence was handed down 5 years, but suspended after 18 months. She would also face mandatory restitution for the survivors and be required to conduct a global apology tour, not the kind of tour she had once envisioned, but a humbling, painful one. Her empire had crumbled, and with it her once untouchable status. The Oprah Winfrey Show, OWN, and her numerous philanthropic projects would cease to exist in the same form. Her legacy, once filled with hope and inspiration, was now tainted with the weight of complicity, silence, and betrayal. The apology tour began in South Africa, where Oprah faced some of the alumni of her school. Some embraced her, others turned their backs. It was a journey of atonement, but for many it was too little too late. As Oprah toured the world, her name, once synonymous with hope and inspiration, became a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. Her final words, spoken in a quiet meeting with a survivor, were simple but haunting. "I failed those who trusted me. I will carry that forever." As Oprah's apology tour continued, the weight of her actions became undeniable. The world watched as she attempted to redeem herself, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. With every stop, the question lingered: how could someone so powerful, so revered, have been complicit in such a horrifying cover-up? In Chicago, Oprah's hometown, protests outside Harpo Studios grew larger. Signs reading, "Beneath the halo, justice for the silenced," dotted the streets. Her supporters, who once celebrated her as the epitome of philanthropy, now demanded accountability. Many had their hopes shattered by the reality of the empire she built. Her fall from grace was as swift as it was painful, and yet the investigation into her activities was only just beginning. Jaguar Wright, whose accusations against Oprah had ignited the spark that would unravel the media mogul's world, was now in the spotlight herself. Her live streams, once dismissed as the ramblings of a disgruntled former employee, were being viewed by millions. What had once been chaos was now analyzed for the truth hidden between the lines. Wright's warnings, previously ignored, were now being seen as prophetic. In Washington, the Department of Justice was finalizing its charges. Oprah's involvement in the suppression of evidence was clear. FBI agents were combing through encrypted messages, financial transfers, and metadata from the Harpo servers, linking Oprah directly to the effort to cover up the trafficking and exploitation of minors. The $75 million payment to Diddy was a key part of the investigation, but there was still much more to uncover. It wasn't just the Hollywood elites who had been protecting each other. It was a network of powerful figures across industries. Russell Simmons was next on the list, and other figures were quietly being investigated. Politicians who had once embraced Oprah were now distancing themselves. The silence was deafening as public figures tried to save their reputations from the fallout of the Oprah scandal. Meanwhile, the world began to re-examine Oprah's legacy. Universities revoked her honorary degrees. OWN was suspended indefinitely, and Oprah's charitable boards quietly dissolved. What had once been symbols of her influence now seemed like shields protecting a woman who was not the savior she had once appeared to be. For some, the real legacy of Oprah Winfrey wasn't one of inspiration, but of complicity. Monique, a longtime critic of Oprah, resurfaced in a television interview, echoing her long-standing claims that Oprah had been more interested in maintaining control than in actually helping those in need. Her words carried weight as she reflected on the time she spent in Oprah's inner circle and how she was blackballed for simply speaking out. At the same time, Gayle King, Oprah's closest confidant, took the most surprising step of all. She announced a full suspension of ties with Oprah, stating simply, "I love my friend, but friendship does not grant immunity." The media world stood still. The question was no longer about what Oprah had done, but how far the complicity went. Legal experts began to weigh in, arguing that Oprah's actions were not just those of a flawed philanthropist, they were those of someone actively shielding criminals to protect their own empire. As Oprah's legal team prepared for the upcoming court hearings, the FBI had one goal in mind: to ensure justice for the victims whose voices had been silenced for so long. The clock was ticking and the walls were closing in on Oprah, but the world wasn't sure what would come next. Was this the end of Oprah Winfrey's career, or merely the beginning of a far larger story? As Oprah's fate neared its final chapter, the media frenzy reached a fever pitch. Her extradition to the United States seemed inevitable, as Swiss authorities could no longer ignore the mounting pressure from the U.S. government. Legal experts and diplomatic officials worked tirelessly behind closed doors, but Oprah's legal team clung to the last hope: a political asylum defense based on race and gender persecution. However, as the public outcry continued to grow, the narrative was shifting. Oprah's legacy, once built on empowerment and hope, had transformed into one of betrayal and complicity. Finally, the day arrived. Oprah Winfrey, once the most trusted figure in American media, stood before a courtroom. The charges were grave obstruction, witness tampering, and conspiracy to suppress evidence. As the courtroom doors closed behind her, it was clear this was no longer just about one woman. It was about a system of power, influence, and secrecy that had for too long remained untouched. The trial of Oprah Winfrey had begun. The world would finally get its answers.